Kings Talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
They kind of drew that play up and kind of called your number on that. What were you thinking?
Yeah, we've been working on that play all week. Probably got 100 throws with Jalen, and it was a good design play. We knew it was going to be wide open, and it was definitely really fun to throw the ball.
Calling back to your high school quarterback days on that one, or
A little bit. Trip down memory lane.
Welcome into Purple Daily. Mackie out today, so it's Zolgad and executive producer, co-host Declan Goff. That was Ryan Wright, the Vikings punter, who I owe a deep apology to, because when he actually made the roster, I was shocked. Brought up a whole bunch of questions and doubt. And not only has he done a fantastic job with his foot punting the football, but also on Sunday completed a fourth down fake punt pass, which Declan absolutely adores.
Love the fake punt.
It is great. I can't argue with you one bit.
It's great.
So that was positives. KOC did his day after press conference when the Vikings got back from London on Monday, and we're going to talk about a couple things, Kirk Cousins being one, Justin Jefferson being the second, and also today with Mackie out, Declan has gone statistical diving for some interesting stats that he has teased and tweeted out regarding the Vikings 4 games in, 3-1, mind you, to the 2022 season. Dex, let's start with this one. Let's start with Kirk, because I think there's a interesting conversation to be had here regarding Kirk, and I think the conversation is, where do things stand in the relationship and the evolution of Kirk Cousins in the Kevin O'Connell scheme? Now, just to backtrack a little bit, okay? I think we all said, well, hell, Kevin O'Connell was Kirk's quarterbacks coach in Washington at one point in 2000, I believe it was 16, if I'm not mistaken. And so Kirk knows this system. This system is going to be Kirk-friendly, and it's going to be a system that Kirk, who has run a lot of different schemes in his pro career, is going to know and embrace immediately. I got some stats that I want to go through, but... Also, I think we assumed a lot, and we heard from Kirk, if you remember in the spring, we asked Kirk about this, and Kirk's like, whoa, the system has changed a lot. It's way more in depth than people know. It's going to take me some time. And so yesterday, Kevin O'Connell was asked about basically where Kirk is 4 games in trying to run this offense the most effective that he possibly can. And here's what the Vikings head coach said.
Obviously, there's some things we can really coach hard. I can coach better to help him be at his best and truly start maximizing what we're going to become as an offense. But to sit here at 3-1 and know that there's a lot of plays maybe that we're going to be able to call back upon to make those plays and score more points and all those things is much easier to have that dialogue, knowing that we have been able to win some tough fought victories here, knowing that there's a lot out in front of us as well.
Now, I like that response, and he's 1,000% right. And I will say this for me, and I'm curious what your thought is here. Okay, first of all, I know there's a large faction of football fans, and I'm guessing people who watch our show too, who dismiss quarterback wins. Like, quarterback wins, who cares what quarterback wins are? That doesn't tell you anything. It's the team that wins or loses games. The advanced metrics, that's what's important here. And my personal opinion is this one. A year ago, you were 1-3. 2022, you're 3-1. And most importantly, you cannot tell me that Kirk Cousins didn't have a significant hand under duress in ugly wins against Detroit and the Saints, because he did. He brought them back. My argument has always been, can Kirk lead the team down the field no matter how the team has played or he has played to win games? And he has done that. And so that's where I think just this, and I feel like this is our problem with sports now. We just dismiss things that we're told to dismiss. Pitcher wins. Okay, they might not always tell a story, but you can't just say, well, it doesn't, who cares? Well, first of all, you're there to win games. So especially with QB wins, because unlike pitchers, they play the entire game. I am not going to dismiss the fact that Kirk played a very large role the last 2 weeks in leading his team back in games that a year ago, Declan, I contend they lose. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the battle I think you're now understanding with Kirk Cousins, that can you sacrifice some individual statistics, of him being basically the automatic 30 touchdown, 10 picks, 4,000-yard guy, if it means two things. If it means his statistics are sacrificed a little bit, but the team is winning. And then also, is he performing well in clutch time and in crunch situations where historically he sometimes hasn't performed as well? Now, the problem with, and I talked about this with Realistic Randy on this YouTube channel yesterday, the problem with asking and trying to project clutchness is extremely difficult. It's next to impossible to predict clutchness. Outside of your name being Tom Brady, right? Or outside of Aaron Rodgers to a degree. Like, it's hard to predict who can be clutch or not. Like, Eli Manning had a tendency to just throw some dumb picks, right? And have horrible games. But he's known for having 2 miraculous playoff runs out of complete left field because he turned it on in January and he turned on some game-winning drives and it worked for him. Worked for Joe Flacco for a few years where he eventually won a Super Bowl and was a superhuman when the Ravens won in 2012. So it's hard to predict that type of performance year in and year out. Where before with Kirk, you knew what the statistics you were always going to get. We've known that now for about 8 years. That's enough of a sample size to know, hey, here's what we've gotten from Kirk Cousins. He's good for 30-plus touchdowns. He's good for only about 10 picks. He completes near 70% of his passes. His quarterback rating's always near 100. But his teams are like 500, sometimes below. And he also has a knack for not showing up in primetime and big spotlight games. And is Kirk Cousins actually really that good? That's the question people have been asking. No matter how, if you want to rank the quarterbacks of well, he's actually like the 11th best, or he's the 15th best. Actually, I think he's the 6th best. We can have those debates. But right now what the Vikings are learning is, all right, we can sacrifice some of the statistics if it means he can show up in big games. And that's where I can sacrifice some of those statistics if it means the Vikings are winning games in clutch time, which they've done now in back-to-back games.
And I think the question here, and there are going to be some Cousins Crusaders that aren't going to like what I'm about to say, surprise, surprise, but I do think it's a part of the conversation, and I'm pretty sure this conversation has been held, Declan, internally at TCO Performance Center once or twice, or 15 times, okay? First of all, when I say, well, Kirk's brought the team back, the Crusaders are going to say, well, he did it against the Cardinals last year, and Joseph missed the damn field goal. And you're right about that, okay? But let's go back to 2020, and I'm going to give you what I perceived to be a far too often Kirk problem. And I've saw recently in the last 2 years, he has definitely been more clutch. Credit to him. But do you remember the game? I think it was 2020. It was a home game. It might have been early in the season. And the Vikings got the ball back late. I think it was week 2 against the Titans, in fact. Vikings got the ball back late. And Kirk freaked out. Like, they never had a chance. And yes, Kirk had some pressure, but guess what? You're going to have pressure. That's going to happen. That's this league. And that was the type of thing where it was like, clearly nobody put a governor on Kirk. Kirk needs a governor. I'm not being a smartass when I say that he needs to be puppeteered. That doesn't mean he's not a really good puppet. He is a really nice high-end puppet. But Kevin O'Connell, the question is, does he have the ability? And I think he does, and I think it's growing, and I don't think he's completely pleased yet. But, if you look at those 2 drives in the last 2 weeks by Kirk, I didn't see that panic. I didn't see, and I've seen it in games, but I didn't see it in those drives. And so this again goes back to the working relationship between quarterback-friendly, offensive-savvy coach and quarterback who has assets and can really make nice plays, but to your point, is not necessarily Brady or Rodgers or a great one. But let me give you the comparison stats here, okay? From 2021, first 4 games, to 2022, Kirk Cousins. And keep in mind, 2021, 1-3. 3 one-score defeats. 2022, 3-1. Last 2 games, basically Kirk has played a key role, fourth quarter, in guiding a game-winning drive. 2021, completions, 108 through 4 games. This year, 99. That's cool. Attempts, 157. The exact same both years. The yardage is down, 1,121 yards last year, 1,031 this year. The touchdowns are down, 9 last year, 6 this year. The interceptions are up from 1 to 4. The completion percentage is going back to Kirk's first year here, 2018, 4 games in, Declan. The completion percentage is the worst of Kirk Cousins' career 4 games in as a Viking, 63.1. Last year, 4 games in, again, 1-3, 68.8. The passer rating is a career low as a Viking 4 games in, 84.1, which is certainly not great. Last year at this time, 105.6. Sacks are the same. The yards gained per pass attempt is, since 2018, first year here, his lowest, 6.6 to 7.1. And you know what I say to this? I don't care. They're winning games. They are winning games. And so this is where I feel like prior to this, it was always about, well, look at Kirk's stats. Kirk's fine. This is where I care about quarterback wins. I would much prefer the Kirk Cousins pulls the game out of the fire on the final drive or one of the last couple drives of the fourth quarter than puts up stats. His stats flat out right now aren't that great. I'm not sure about you. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. And I think O'Connell, if you listen to his responses, wants a lot more. But as he said, it's easier to demand more and try to get more when you've won 3 or 4 games as opposed to a year ago when you've lost 3 or 4 games.
You know, I put out a graphic on the Score North Twitter account, which, of course, everyone is not taking very kindly all the time. But I said Kirk Cousins threw 4 games this season, 84.1 passer rating, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks, 63.1% completion percentage, and 2 fourth-quarter comebacks. I put 2 fourth-quarter comebacks in that graphic because it's important. It's important to note. And, of course, I get some of the notes, you don't put the team record in there. So here's the issue that I love to talk about here. I'm asking for a report card grade of Kirk Cousins through 4 games that he has helped the Vikings win 3 of those first 4 games. Now, I will say the common grade so far from most people is about a B-. And just a quick little assessment, about a B- from Kirk through the first 4 games. I would probably give it the same. I would give it a B or a B-. He hasn't been an A quarterback so far, but he has held the clutch gene that he usually has historically lacked. I know last year he held some fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives where the kicker missed a field goal or there was a missed call at the end with the bad fumble against Cincinnati, whatever. But regardless, the team wins. The team has won the 3 of their first 4 games this season with him doing that. He deserves applause for that. There's been numerous times where he's gone out there, gone 3 and out, or done checkdowns, or isn't afraid, or is too afraid to push the ball down the field. And so far, he has helped the Vikings get to 3-1, and that deserves credit. I really don't care about the 35 touchdowns and his DVOA being this, and that, or his PFF grade being this, and that. Right now, he is paid to be the franchise-leading quarterback. He's paid to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he has the Vikings at 3-1. So the 35 touchdowns, I don't care if he finishes with 35 or 22 if the Vikings are 11-5 by the end of the year and are hosting a playoff game. So this is good. This is good. And also, the best part about this is there is still a significant room to grow with him statistically and with this offense as a whole. I'm going to bring up some statistics here later on in the show that I found very interesting so far through the season that I think the Vikings should be potentially using more of going forward. But right now, the Vikings are 3-1, and Kirk, even though statistically isn't playing great, his team is winning, and I'm a fan of it. That's fine.
Yes, and this is what an offensive coach that works with Kirk can do. This is what you can get. And look, I flat out have said this. I do not think the Vikings are a given by any means to win the last 2 games with the previous regime here. And Kirk has done a nice job when it matters. So I think the whole thing, and I think the thing is going to play out. And I think I think O'Connell needs a year to decide here. Basically, can I get Kirk Cousins to a point where I want him as my guy? And if I can't, you know what? By 2024, there will be a different QB here. And I don't think O'Connell ever said, hey, Kirk's my guy for 5 years. I think O'Connell said, I can work with him. And so far, he's done that. And the fact that his personal stats aren't great, to me, is absolutely fine. And you know what I also don't need? I don't need Kirktober. Play good, solid football, win games, but I don't need him now going off. So, yes, I think that this is a work in progress. I think it's far from honed, and I think it's incredibly intriguing to watch play out. But, yeah, Kirk Cousins, statistically, not great. I think we can both say this. We don't give a damn. We don't give a damn. Okay, topic 2, Justin Jefferson. But before we get there, want to, of course, thank our friends who sponsor the show. First of all, TCL. Enjoy more with a TCL television. If you are going to watch the Vikings, make sure it's on a TCL. And also by our friends at Surly Brewing and Declan Goff. Declan Goff, there is an exciting event coming up on October 16th. Vikings-Dolphins in Miami that day at noon. We will not be near Miami or South Beach. We will be at Surly Brewing with you watching that game, and it'll be just like our draft party. It'll be great fun. We invite you all to come out, enjoy some Before I Dies, Furiouses, Logic Bombs. As Dex says, a ton of beers there that are only at the brewery, exclusive there. Post game, after we watch the game with you, we'll do vent line. We'll actually have it set up. So if you want to grab a mic and join us to comment, you can. October 16th, and then another viewing party for the noon kickoff against Washington at November 6th. Make your plans now to join us at the Brew Hall. It will be a live vent line. We're taking the show on the road at least twice, Declan Goff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, the draft party was so much fun. Excited to talk Purple with a bunch of other Vikings fans, watch the game. It's going to be an absolute blast. Don't try to outdrink Judd, and don't get Judd too drunk. We can't be affording a drunk Judd Zolgad on stage. No. But if you'd like to get, a little tuned up a little bit too, you can grab a microphone, keep it clean. But we're so excited to be at Surly again. We loved hanging out with you guys. Draft party is going to be an absolute blast. I will also say, maybe because it's spooky season, Judd. It's spooky season. It's October. You might want to check out the newest haunted attraction in the Twin Cities, Nowhere Haunted House, an all-indoor haunted attraction in Invergrove Heights. They have their weekend attraction, a daytime low-scare option for those more daring thrill seekers with insomnia. It's an 18-plus event now, okay? So this isn't necessarily for kids. You do have to sign a waiver to go. So if you want to get really into the spooky season, go to nowherehauntedhouse.com. Buy your tickets now. Nowhere Haunted House. Embrace that spooky season. Go check them out.
All right, sounds good. All right, topic 2 on today's PD, Justin Jefferson. Kevin O'Connell asked about the work that he has done with Justin Jefferson as JJ had a great opening game against the Packers and then had 2 games where he wasn't statistically as successful, and then, of course, came back on Sunday and had a big day. Kevin O'Connell gave a very interesting answer in talking about Justin Jefferson.
To set the standard of, hey, I know that maybe statistically I'm frustrated, but I know how I'm impacting the game to let Adam and KJ and Irv and these guys have one-on-one significant opportunities to either make big-time plays or draw penalties by eating up coverage like he did yesterday. And I just think that to come through that and then have a 10 for 147 and his first career rushing touchdown, I just think it bodes really, really well for our team and our offense moving forward.
All right. I love that. And O'Connell gave a pretty, as he's wont to do, lengthy answer about Jefferson's progress and about where things stand. And Dex, here's the thing that I loved the absolute most. And this sounds like common sense, and it sounds like it should happen all the time. And I flat out can tell you it does not. If Justin Jefferson, in fact, you know what? Let's substitute Justin Jefferson's name with Stephon Diggs. When, not if, when Stephon Diggs was frustrated here, right? And we know for a fact that he was. was frustrated by the scheme. So it was not like I hate Cousins. It was far more of what are you guys doing? Like, why are we not throwing more? It's pretty clear he was told, you know what, Stefan? Walk out of the room, close the door. We'll tell you when we have something to tell you, right?
Yep.
And he got frustrated, and he was a great player, and he eventually forced a trade because the Vikings were very, very set and probably, a fair term, close-minded about what they were going to do. And they were going to run the ball, and Stefan Diggs was going to get the damn football when they decided, and nothing else. It is O'Connell, and I love this, because that first game against Packers, Jefferson was fantastic. And then the second game, Jefferson, frustrated, got shut down. Darius Slay did a fantastic job. The Vikings tried to get him the ball. It didn't work. The next game against Detroit, they actually, I think, only targeted him like 6 times, which is ridiculously low. The point being is, what did Kevin O'Connell do? He worked with Jefferson. He consulted. He talked to him. Does that mean that he said, I promise you this or that? I'm sure it does absolutely not. But he made Jefferson feel part of the process. And I would love to know the last Vikings player, Dex, who felt part of the process. Because a lot of people in this league say, we will make the decision about what part of the process you will play, and then we'll tell you, and on Sunday, you go do your job. I love this, and I absolutely love the fact, and I think it's going to be huge here, that if Jefferson has a good or bad day, he's not going to feel like an employee who is just told to go to work. He's going to feel like somebody who was embraced, taken in, and then allowed to at least have a say. This is, to me, especially for a player like this, an absolutely huge step from the previous regime to this one.
Yeah, this is where Justin Jefferson is going to get figured out a little bit sometimes. Teams are going to now key in on him a little bit more. It's actually, in my opinion, remarkable that it took about 35 games into his NFL career for teams to realize we should just double him. Why aren't we doubling him? And now Jefferson gets taken away a little bit. Now you have guys like KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen getting able to step up for it after their little bit of a slow start to the season. You still have to funnel things through JJ, and they are. I mean, he's still third in receiving yards in the NFC right now. He's averaging 14 yards per catch. He hauls in and pulls off his Allen Iverson moment basically on his Instagram page yesterday of stepping over Lattimore just like AI stepped over Ty Lue in the finals. He's a superstar player, but now the book is out on him. This is what happens in sports. The book is out on him, and how can you adjust? And good for Kevin O'Connell to still figure out ways of, all right, we went back-to-back games with our best playmaker being taken away from us. It won't be a third straight game. And there wasn't a stubbornness of, well, we'll just figure it out. And I think in past regimes, that would have been the answer. We'll just figure it out. There's no way he will. And Kevin O'Connell figured out ways to get Justin Jefferson the football against the Saints, and then even Kirk targeting him with, obviously, again, that deep throw at the end of the game. That was a dagger moment. That was, hey, I'm going to run a go route. Throw me the damn ball. And Justin Jefferson was frustrated already in that game. You know, he wanted the ball in the corner of the end zone when Kirk didn't throw it. But he's a baller, man. He wants to have the moments that every other great wide receiver does. And yeah, you don't want this to turn into a Stefan Diggs situation where, you know, I think the misconception with Diggs was, well, Diggs didn't like Kirk. No, Diggs had no problem with Kirk. And in fact, I listened to his interview on Dan Le Batard last week. He loves Kirk Cousins. He had no problem with Kirk. It was the scheme and the way the coaching staff was basically orchestrating their offense that he said, this doesn't feel right to me. And he obviously made his point clear. Did he go about it in the best way? Probably not. But now look at him thrive in Buffalo. And now the Vikings also get Justin Jefferson because they traded Stefan Diggs. So it all works out in the long run, but you have to figure out ways to keep Jefferson involved. I think the bigger question going forward is if Justin Jefferson is taken away as a Vikings offense, you had the playmakers to make up for it, but you can't just go into a fetal position and say, well, we tried. Justin Jefferson got taken away. It's how do you adjust to that if he is double covered and you can't get him the football?
Yeah, and so just to compare, again, 2021 first 4 games for Jefferson to 2022. Targets, 2021, 37. 2022, 42. Receptions, 26 a year ago, 28 now. Yards, 338 a year ago, 393 now. Yards per catch, 13, now 14. Touchdowns are actually down by 1 from 3 to 2. The point being is we're not talking here about a huge seismic shift in his statistical production. What we're talking about is an incorporation of him. And the other thing that the Vikings did on Sunday that they absolutely was smart was what? The Saints said, we are going to take our Pro Bowl corner and single cover you. And the Vikings said, okay, cool. That's going to give us a chance to incorporate Jefferson more. And they did. It's the common sense. It's the previous Vikings offensive schemes, I thought, problematically, were far too rigid. We run the football and that's what we do. Okay, that's great, but do you adjust? Not really. Now they do. I just find it to be very intriguing that Kirk's stats are actually down.
Yep.
And some of the stats are not good. And Jefferson's stats are pretty flat, but the perception and the feeling about the team, in large part because they are 3-1, but also because of the ability of the coaching staff and the offensive staff, especially to incorporate the players to make them feel part of the process and to have them actually help you. And that to me is a huge step. And if you go back, Dex, and watch this too, in the Saints game, there are throws, as far as Kirk goes, there are 100% throws that he needs to be making at times that he's still not. So, like, if we're talking about room for growth or room for, it's there for sure. So this is by no means even close to being right now offensively a finished product. But what it is it's a product that can morph and change and be open to change. And I think that is just so huge. And I do love the fact that Justin Jefferson is being included in the solutions, because I don't feel like anybody, especially a guy like Stephon Diggs a couple of years ago, was ever included as part of the solutions.
Yeah, that's important. Keep your superstars happy, man. It's the most important thing. You can't alienate your superstars. I understand it's a team game and everyone needs the football here and there, and there's situations that dictate that. Yeah. But you got to keep your playmakers happy and your superstars happy.
Speaking of that, sir, what makes you when you're getting dressed, when you wake up and you're getting dressed, what makes Declan Goff the happiest each morning?
Outside of my sweet dog Vinny, who I had to take out 2 a.m. yesterday because someone had to use the bathroom.
Happens.
When I wake up, I throw on my pair of Chill Boys. I throw on my bamboo fabric and I start my day. Some days it calls for the Performance brand, some days it calls for the bamboo fabric. Now that we're getting into fall and we're getting closer to the winter time, maybe the long underwear options as well. Even yesterday as I came home from work, I threw on the Chill Boys t-shirt. They now just don't have underwear. They have t-shirts and hoodies. Nice. It's the softest t-shirt I own. My girlfriend wants to steal the hoodie. I said, nope. This is my hoodie. You do not get to take this hoodie. This one's mine. If you want one, you can go buy one. Score15.com for 15% off your order. Yes, I love my Chill Boys. I love that they've also expanded just outside of underwear, which is the most comfortable on the planet. Yes, Chill Boys. Use promo code SCORE15 and they will knock off 15% off your order.
And socks as well, too, which are comfortable, which are very, very comfortable. And guess what? My Chill Boys now, because I love them, right?
Yeah.
They fit pretty well. And here's why. Because about a year ago now, I started on the Livia Weight Control Center plan. I dropped 40 pounds. The best part is I'm keeping that weight off. Dawn has joined me. She's down, I think, 16 plus pounds now. Guess what, folks? This works. And right now, if you join, you'll receive your first 8 weeks for free. That's right. Imagine all the weight that you can drop in your first 8 weeks. The new Flex program, it lets you enjoy the food you love. It lets you enjoy fruit, pasta, and even bread. And the best part about it is once the weight is gone, it stays off. 855-GO-LIVIA, Livia, LIVEA.com, LIVEA.com. That is your ticket to dropping those unwanted pounds. All right, Declan Goff, you, with Phil out, have dug up some interesting stats about the Vikings offense. Yeah. 4 games in. The floor is yours.
All right, so I wanted to, keep this theme going of key offensive statistics that we like to do. Obviously, Phil will do his State of the Offense episode on Thursday, but I figured let me put on my nerdy football loving self. Let me go find some statistics here.
Get those nerds! Nerd!
So, Judd, I went over to NFLGSIS.com, a great little media website for us press box brethren. They provide it in the press box. I don't know if it's available for everyone. It might not be, but it has some great little play propensity. I said, play propensity football splits on Vikings offense and defense. So I do want to focus on the offense here. And let's start with this one here, because this was going to be a big thing going forward from last year compared to this year. So we knew Mike Zimmer loved to run the football, right? Love to run the football, establish the run, play good defense, manage the clock, blah, blah. And Kevin O'Connell said, we're taking the Rams offense and we're going to bring it over here to a degree. So I was curious, all right, on 1st and 10, what is the splits? What were the splits last year? How many times did the Vikings run versus how many times did they pass? Okay. So far, this season, the Vikings on 1st and 10 are passing 58% of the time. So on 1st and 10, they are passing the ball 58% of the time. You can do the math that it's 58.1, and then the rushing percentage is 41%. So a pretty big difference there. 58% of the time on 1st and 10, they will pass the ball. Last year, under Mike Zimmer, in this same situation, the play propensity football, the Vikings were passing just 52% of the time and running 47% of the time. So basically and you might say, well, that's only 78%. That is a large chunk. And we have a smaller sample size here, 4 games versus 16. But that tells you right there that the Vikings are more open to passing on 1st and 10. They don't have to be predictable and handing the ball off and then going from there. Kevin O'Connell making due on his promise that this team is going to pass the football more. 58% of first down and 10 plays, Judd, are resulting in passing plays.
Do you by chance have what the Vikings' average second down distance is now then?
I don't have that on the top on this side right now. I don't have the average to go.
I'd be curious if they're cutting that down, because I mean, the frustration was ultimately what? 2nd and 12, right? Mm-hmm. And then they'd run again, and it'd be 3rd and 9, and then they'd punt. So I would be curious if this is getting them to a better place potentially of 2nd and 6 or something like that.
Right. Yeah, so far, don't have the distance on the yards to go so far, and I'll even compare some of the statistics later on to NFL league average through 4 games with the Vikings offense. Nice. But another interesting one here is formation usage. Football. So the 2022 Vikings on 1st and 10. We're going to do all on 1st and 10 here for most of these statistics. I'm curious how Vikings offense are setting up versus this time last year. So when the Vikings are on 1st and 10, and they have 3 wide receivers on the field, and by the way, they have done that 75% of the time, or 75 plays on 1st and 10 this season with 3 wide receivers on the field. How many yards are they gaining? Mm-hmm. The Vikings are averaging 8 yards per game on 1st and 10 when they have 3 wide receivers out on the football field. That is the 5th best rank in the entire NFL. I don't know the 4 teams in front of us, but the 5th best rank when it's 1st and 10 and you spread them out, right? 3 wide receivers out.
You'll take that in a second.
Every time.
Absolutely.
Now, when they again kind of go back to that conservative nature on 1st and 10 with a couple wide receivers, 1 tight end on the field, they're averaging about 4 yards per play, which is 16th in the NFL. Right down the middle. It's average. It's predictable. But when they have decided to put 3 wide receivers on 1st and 10, they're averaging almost a first down a gain at 8 yards, and it's the 5th best rank in the entire NFL.
So you are telling me that when they deploy 11 personnel, when you go 11 personnel, you're in great shape.
Yes. They should be. The 11 personnel
That's really impressive.
Yes,
that's a great stat, because that tells a story of, I think, reversing the frustrations of 2021, right?
Yes.
8 yards that's a nice chunk. And again, guess what it gets you? It gets you in a manageable down and distance very quickly. Nothing more frustrating than 2nd and 12. So
no, there is not.
That's a great one.
All right, so this next one here, I was curious how many players have the Vikings used on offense this year. Now, they've been pretty healthy, which is knock on wood. They have been a very healthy team. But, Kevin O'Connell's buzzword on that press conference, his opening press conference when he was hired, was the illusion of complexity. So how can we maybe scheme other guys that weren't open before, weren't being utilized before? How can we get them involved? So far, of all the teams that have used the majority of the most players on their offense, the most players that have taken snaps, and again, injuries factor into this, schemes factor into this. It's not just a black and white thing. Right. The Rams have used 32 different players on offense this season in the NFL. That is the most in the league. Now, they again, lost some offensive linemen. Yesterday, they were dropping like flies again. But 32 players have taken a snap on offense. That includes linemen, that includes quarterback, that includes playmakers. So everyone on offense. 32 players have taken a snap for the Rams on offense. That's the most in the NFL.
Sure.
The Vikings this season have used just 18 players on offense, which is actually the lowest in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers are second with 19, which, again, I don't think that this is a bad thing that they've only used 18 players because, again, the injury factor, I think, plays a factor here. But the illusion of complexity, it's been mostly the same offense that you've seen, the most players and personnel and everyone else, the formations. That's been a little different, but the players that have been utilized in those formations are all the same players for the most part. Just 18 players have taken snaps on offense for the Vikings.
Right. Well, I think in fairness, the illusion of complexity is just basically the looks that you're presenting and trying to move guys around and create confusion on the defensive side of the ball. And that can be done with the same personnel being used. You might change the groupings at times, blah, blah, blah. But that is intriguing. And so, yes, offensive line-wise, the Vikings have been 4 games in, very fortunate because – yeah, I think the Rams didn't the Rams get down to like their third player at center last night?
Yeah, rough.
Allen was out. The backup was in. I think he got hurt. I'm not positive about that. But anyway, so yes, the Rams' injury problems are a major issue for them. But that being said, I think that in some ways, Dex, Zimmer in training camp last year, or I think it was before, told Joe Schmidt of Channel 5. He said, I think Joe asked about the roster. And I think Mike said, I really like my top 28 players. And his point was our depth is not good. And I wonder if we are still talking, because you can't fix that in 1 year. I wonder if there is still way more to be done depth-wise, Declan. Like, I wonder if your point with that stat, which is a stat that clearly is intriguing and can cause plenty of conversation. I wonder if at least a little part of that is that they don't have that second layer of guys yet that they completely trust. I mean, that's my outside of the fact that on offense, fortunately, they've been pretty healthy. That's my only other thought of what might be potential. An issue is that they don't have that depth yet there completely. I don't think it's terrible, but I also probably don't think it's ideal yet because it's going to take them some time.
All right, one more here that I wanted to notice. I want to notice what the Vikings offense is doing compared to league average in the NFL. So I'm just going to run through some traditional categories versus league average. So right now the Vikings offense is essentially yards-wise exactly league average. The Vikings are averaging 344 yards per game. The NFL is averaging 344 yards per game. So it's dead even. It's been an average yards per game offense. Points per game, again, almost dead even. 21.5 points a game for the Vikings so far. The league is averaging itself 21.9. So again, about an average offense here. But there's a few things of offensive statistics here that I think are trending in the right direction. And again, areas where Kevin O'Connell is trying to change from an old scheme and an old Cogger type of mindset. The Vikings are averaging 246 passing yards per game. Okay. The NFL league average is 228. So they're averaging about 18 more passing yards per game. And that might seem not that much, but that's a significant upgrade. That's 20 extra yards that you're gaining through the air, essentially, on offense compared to the league average team, which is important. Yep. First downs per game. The Vikings are averaging 23. The league is averaging 20. So the Vikings offense has still been able to march to first downs. Now, penalties, I believe, factor in here. So automatic first downs do still, I believe, count in that category. So that there is a little bit of a backdoor there that they've gotten first downs because of penalties that have happened. But again, a trend in my opinion, in the right direction with the Vikings offense. So has it been perfect so far? Has it been maybe top 5 and top 10 like we want it to be? Not yet. But the ways that they're changing the offense with the play propensity, there we go. And making a more effort to pass the ball down the field and under Kevin O'Connell, that hypothesis is still playing out, and it is still trending in the right direction that they do want to air the ball out more than they did under Mike Zimmer.
Yes, and I sense that O'Connell definitely wants more, and rightfully so, thinks that there's more from Kirk as far as that passing game goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I told you this Monday. I'm legitimately somewhat concerned that the defense, which by the way is not terrible, but I don't know if there's like a ton of growth there. I just have no clue. Offensively, I watch that and say there's a ton of growth here. And if Kirk's the guy, that's awesome. If he's not I still think, as Brad Childress said when Kevin Seifert asked him after that debacle in Green Bay late in the 2006 campaign, something about, is this offense as good as you thought? And Brad said, it's a kick-ass offense. And we joked about that for years. I think this is a kick-ass offensive scheme. I do. I think that this has the potential. I would say this. The defense, I have no clue, and it might just be what it is. The offense, if it does not show substantial growth here, I will be very surprised. Really surprised. And it's not bad now, but I feel like if we're talking about potential gears, Dex, I feel like if this is second gear, this thing can go up to at least 5.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yes, I do. I think that's the most intriguing part, that it can actually be an offense that can live up to its potential. And if it continues to grow like the way it is, and the way they're utilizing these 3 wide receiver sets and whatnot, and not running the football just to do it, it is a good sign. One more here, actually, Judd. One more here as I look down on first down play propensity.
Football.
On 1st and 10 passes, the 2022 Vikings have gained 535 yards this season. Mm-hmm. That is the most in the NFL. Mm-hmm. No other team has passed for more yards on 1st and 10 than the 2022 Vikings. Again, can't see the full 2 through 32 list of teams below them, but they do put in league parentheses their rank next to each of these statistics. And on 1st and 10 and more, 535 yards, that is the most in the NFL this season. They have had 61 plays in those situations.
A lot of first down.
A lot of first downs.
Success.
Yes, a lot of first down success.
That's great.
But yeah, those are my nerdy statistics here as I try to play Phil the best I can.
Those are great stats. Before we're done, let's go through quickly the PFF grades that stood out from the Vikings Saints game, Dex, because there's 2 interesting themes here. Okay, one, offensive line. So the only guy who wasn't in the top or bottom, the top 5 or bottom 3, PFF grade-wise offensive line, Vikings versus the Saints, is Brian O'Neill. At the top, number 1 offensively, Declan Goff, Christian Darrisaw, who, by the way, is turning into a hell of a left tackle, which is absolutely key. 75.33 grade. That led the entire offense in grades. Number 2, somewhat of a surprise, Ed Ingram. Number 2 overall, offensively, 70.2 grade.
Okay.
The next 3 guys after Ingram were Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins. Now let's get to the bottom 3. The worst player, and this is probably because of one play in particular, not surprisingly, the worst offensive player graded by PFF, my guy, Johnny Munt, 28.2. Don't have the football, go through your hands, catch the pass. You're probably not the worst graded player. Number 2 among the worst grades offensively, Declan, Garrett Bradbury, 45.8. So step back for him. Number 3, Ezra Cleveland, 49.7. So again, the only player from the offensive line who didn't earn either a top 5 or bottom 3 grade was O'Neill. Darrisaw and Ingram, according to PFF, were outstanding. Bradbury and Cleveland were bad. I find that to be very intriguing.
Yeah, that is interesting. I obviously Brian O'Neill, who had a little bit of a rough game against the Saints, that's for sure. I mean, he came into the game graded as one of the best right tackle essentially in the NFL in terms of pass blocking win rate. Saints got a good D line, so I'm not too shocked that they were able to push him around a little bit. Yeah. But in general, I mean, the Vikings offensive line has held up its part of the bargain. Obviously against the Saints, they finally saw a legitimate front where pressure was in Kirk's face more. But a little surprising that Ed Ingram has actually still been grading better than we think. He's been the weakest link on that line so far. And I know you were more bullish on Ezra Cleveland than I probably was. I wouldn't say that I was expecting to be just a slappy, but I think he's mostly just a guy on the line. But man, those interior spots, you can't really take them for granted either. Like I understand why you believed in Ezra Cleveland and why the Vikings are banking that Ezra Cleveland was going to be a solid guard next to Garrett Bradbury as well.
Yeah, and in Garrett's case, I am still curious here. Like, I'm not sold yet by any means. It's 4 games in. He's been up until the Saints game better, but that's one where I still think the Vikings will do this and that they need to. I think you need to go out for 2023, upgrade there. I think he's done here. All right, defensively, PFF, your top 5. Tomlinson was great, 89.8, highest grade. Dantzler, Lynch, Pat P, who actually played a really good game as well. Harrison Phillips at 69.6, number 5. Your bottom 3, and I want to get to the third guy because I think that there's an intriguing storyline here. Your bottom 3, your worst player, Cam Bynum, 45.6. Your second worst, this is interesting, Harrison Smith, 48.4. This is a couple of very clunkerish games. But number 3 is the one that gets me. Because for the second consecutive week, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Hicks is one of your biggest liabilities, according to PFF, on defense, a 53.2 grade. I wonder, so Kendricks, I think, is grading out fine. Like, I don't think he's great, but he's also makes plays. Declan, I wonder what the patience on Jordan Hicks is. He was brought in, veteran player, but Dye and Asamoah, and Dye right now is clearly on the depth chart, their choice before Asamoah's. But I wonder if Jordan Hicks' job at some point in time, like post-bye week, could be in trouble. Because if teams value these grades as much as we think they potentially do, for a veteran guy brought in for basically a year, that's got to be considered a concerning grade if that's going to be the constant, especially when that position you're trying to get speed. And the Vikings clearly have guys who aren't playing at linebacker who could bring more speed.
Yeah, he's racking up a ton of tackles, which is great. Someone's got to make the tackles, but
exactly.
But he hasn't
well put.
He hasn't necessarily been super impressive by any means. I mean, I think he led the Cardinals in tackles last year.
But that's a linebacker stat. But
yes.
That means nothing because you're right. Somebody has to tackle a guy.
Yeah.
So like that, I think that there used to be a premium, way more so, put on that stat. But yeah, tackles. Okay, great. But I think for what this defense is trying to achieve, and they're definitely going to start to dissect it a bit, I wonder if Jordan Hicks ultimately is going to be considered, to a certain point at least, a liability, and that, a guy like Dye or ultimately Asamoah could step in and give you more speed, because they clearly aren't trying to find big guys. I think what they want is speed there. Yep. But if Jordan Hicks is going to continue to grade out in the bottom 3, I could see them, if not parting company, definitely making a starter change at linebacker.
Yeah, and I know a lot of fans are basically asking for Brian Asamoah to get more playing time, and rightfully so. I think he's, for the most part, pretty much earned it. But yeah, we'll see if they end up making those adjustments. So far, Ed Donatel has just relied on this shell coverage. A lot of these defensive coordinators just get set in their ways. Les with the cover 2, Mike with his ways as well. They just kind of get set, and we're going to run this scheme. We're going to keep this scheme intact. We're not going to change it. But I do think if you're not going to change the scheme, Judd, then you have to probably plug in a different personnel.
Correct.
Like if you're not going to change the scheme, plug in someone else then.
And O'Connell's not going to watch this, right? and say, oh, Ed, you just do you. I would think at some point he'd say, dude, the wins and losses go under my name.
Yep.
So like, because yes, I'm not expecting Donatel to change the scheme, but I am expecting him to look at those who play within the scheme personnel-wise and aren't effective and say, we might make a change there. And I got to think that the head coach is going to eventually say, Ed, let's try something, let's make a tweak here or there to try to change things. So PFF grades, Hicks bad, Tomlinson good, Darisaw great, and Bradbury and Cleveland at the bottom. So that's what I got for you.
Interesting. All right. All good stuff. Yeah. I mean, I love this play propensity thing and all other stuff. We'll see if old Macadac maybe steals
the
one
first
of these
down
tweets
stuff
or
is
two.
good. I love
really
the
good.
first down stuff because yes, I think the first down stuff is a great indicator of the difference in philosophy, and putting your offense, at least potentially, in a position to succeed consistently, which they now need to start doing more often.
I love it. All right, man. I think that's going to do it for us here on Purple Daily. We'll have an
Good stuff.
accountability session. Write that down tomorrow. Plenty of stuff to get to there. So hit the subscribe button, Daily Minnesota Vikings Entertainment, right here on this YouTube channel. We got Realistic Randy Rants that's posted. We have Before We Die with Jesse Pierce and Thor Nystrom as well. So hit the subscribe button, Daily Minnesota Vikings Entertainment. We'll be back tomorrow.